Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Israel Brief with me, Rolene Marks, brought to you by Lay of the Land. I hope you've grabbed yourself a coffee, or depending on wherever you are in the world, maybe something stronger, and you join me for our daily date to take a look at those top stories making headlines in Israel. And we are on day 186 of Israel's war with Hamas. And I thank you for all your lovely comments. Sometimes I get comments that are really uncalled for. And while I do believe in the freedom of speech, the one thing we will not take here is abuse, genocide denial, or hatred of anyone in any format. So those comments are roundly removed. Hey, you guys are my family, my community, so we keep it positive in these sections. That's not to say you can't criticize policies that you don't like, but anything that has a hateful or inciting undertone, or in some of these cases overtone, will be deleted. So let's take a look at those top stories, and we begin with news that is very worrying to us in Israel, and that is that Hamas have rejected yet another proposal for a ceasefire. If we are playing ceasefire count bingo, this will be the seventh proposal that Hamas has rejected. Now, for all the people out there calling for a ceasefire, demanding a ceasefire, who never call on Hamas to cease firing, they are still firing rockets at Israeli civilians, and nobody calls on them to cease fire or to release our hostages. Now, a Hamas official has said that the American proposal only mentions the hostages, does not take into consideration their concerns, which is a call for the full withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. Now, no country in the world facing an existential threat like Israel is facing is going to get rid of a military presence until we have absolute assurance that we have effectively won this war. Yes, we might be moving to a different stage of the war where we have more combat situations rather than a full-scale war, but make no mistake, Israel is still at war with Hamas. What is very concerning to us in Israel is that Hamas have said that they do not have 40 hostages in their custody, which of course has all of us asking, where are our hostages, and questioning what is the fate of those who have been taken captive, who we assume are still alive. We know that there are 133 hostages, 97 of them are presumed alive, and 36 of them have been murdered. Their bodies are being held in captivity by Hamas. This is more than our nation's emotions and soul can bear. We can only think of what the families are enduring. We want our people home now. What is also concerning is statements from political leaders in recent weeks calling for ceasefires but not making it contingent on the release of the hostages. Israel's war aims are twofold. Number one, the immediate and unconditional release of the hostages. We want them all home, and the defeat and dismantling of Hamas's military capability. Meanwhile, yesterday a video was released of a Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist speaking very calmly in interrogation. You know, it always begs the question to me. We saw after the terror attack in Moscow how the Russian forces treat terrorists, and there were no big objections around the world. And here we have the complete opposite in Israel, talking calmly, conversationally to a terrorist, and they are talking quite happily, sharing the information quite freely. So this Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist has admitted that the terror groups all coordinate with each other to manipulate the media. They communicate via WhatsApp, and once they've got a message out, they share that with the international media. And they say they're quite happy to share untruth. This is the whole campaign. This is the whole philosophy about them sharing information. And when the interrogator says, well, can you give us an example? He says the Al-Ali hospital. Now, if you recall the events of the 17th of October, Israel was accused of hitting a hospital in an airstrike, which of course led to widespread condemnation, protests around the world, and violence against Jewish communities. After investigation, it was found that the hospital, well, actually the parking lot of the hospital was perfectly intact, had been hit by an errant Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket and had not killed 500 people, but had killed just several dozen. Now, this begs the question, how much of the information that you are consuming in the media is all made up? How much are the numbers all made up? We know that they are not verified. They come from the Hamas Ministry of Health, and we have no breakdown between combatants and civilians, and why there is no independent fact-checking done by news channels around the world. So before we believe whatever comes out of Gaza from these terror organizations, always do the research. He also spoke about how all of the hospitals inside the Gaza Strip are used by terror organizations as human shields. They know that hospitals have protected status under the laws of armed conflict. However, that protected status changes when it becomes a legitimate military target. Everybody is asking the question, what is going to happen now with Rafah? Rafah is the last Hamas stronghold inside the Gaza Strip. It is estimated that 4 or 5 remaining Hamas battalions are holed up in Gaza. And one of the huge concerns of the international community is the civilians. Israel has ordered 40,000 tents in an attempt to try and evacuate as many civilians as possible and take them to safe zones. However, last night, Prime Minister Netanyahu said he has a date that Israel will be entering Rafah. Of course, we don't know that date, but I'll read you a quote that he said a short while ago. He said, "We will complete the elimination of the Hamas battalions, including in Rafah. No force in the world will stop us. Many forces are trying to do this, but it will not help because this enemy, after what he has done, will not do it again." Former Prime Minister Yair Lapid has headed off to Washington. He has been hosted by the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and has received a very warm welcome. Now, this is in stark contrast to some of the attitudes we are seeing towards Prime Minister Netanyahu, which has many saying, perhaps there is an international push to see a change in the administration here in Israel. The former Prime Minister, who is also the leader of the opposition, spoke to the Secretary of State about the delicate balance between protecting civilians and ensuring our military aims, and of course pushed for the immediate and for the US administration to do absolutely everything in their power to secure the release of the hostages. Meanwhile, back at home, 71% of Israelis have said that they would like Prime Minister Netanyahu to resign either immediately or as soon as the war concludes. And finally, the state of Nicaragua has taken Germany to the International Court of Justice and filed a charge accusing Germany of abetting and aiding genocide. They support South Africa in South Africa's ludicrous case at the ICJ accusing Israel of genocide. And while I'm on that subject, Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, stood in Kigali just 2 days ago and spoke about not turning a blind eye to genocide, Well, let me remind President Ramaphosa of the genocide against Christians taking place on the African continent. In my research, I have found 62,000 just in Nigeria, and I haven't gotten to the Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mozambique, and other parts of the continent, not to mention genocide in his own country when members of his government called to kill the Boer or shoot the Boer, and that is backed up with the wholesale torture and murder of South African farmers. Just saying, Mr. President, while we are talking about genocide. Anyway, back to the ICJ. Germany has dismissed this claim that Nicaragua is making, saying that Israel's security is one of the focuses of their foreign policy. Germany has also said that they will stand as a third in favor of Israel at the International Court of Justice. And staying in Germany, the German government have allocated 25 million dollars to Holocaust survivors around the world, which would see survivors receive a once-off stipend of about $238. They say this is in solidarity, especially now as Hamas's crimes against humanity and genocidal acts on the 7th of October brings up very, very painful memories of what they endured during history's darkest days. Those are your top stories making headlines, a very, very feisty edition of the Israel Brief today. Don't forget to check out all our original content on our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook page, as always, at Lottel's site. We are on YouTube at the Israel Brief. And we're right here. If you like us, click on that subscribe button. And we are on X at Lay of the Land 5. Now, if any of you can sort out what's happening with the weather here in Israel, I would be greatly appreciative. It's been hot, it's been cold, it's been hot, it's been cold. But in the meantime, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And I will see you again for tomorrow's edition of the Israel Brief. I'm Rolene Marks. Bye for now.